Pop, what's going on, man?
What's up, son?
Fired up, fired up. Another great week here on the
Grinding.
Dom and Pop podcast, grinding, talking all things Commanders. Gonna get into a lot of good stuff here. You guys see the outline on the side here. It's on that side. I don't know. One of these spots. You see the outline on the screen already, so you know what's going on. But don't forget, guys, before we get started, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Today, we're discussing two commanders position groups. So what we're going to do is each week lead it up to training camp, we're going to break down two different position groups. So this is the segment, this is the podcast for the real ball knowers. This is an opportunity for us to really get to the bottom of stuff. I think, to really dig in on certain position groups, leave ourselves a little more time, a little more breathing room in these pods rather than just breezing over it. We can really talk about in depth what's going on in each position group. So we're starting that series today. And then second half of the pod, we'll be talking 2025 NFL season with the divisional playoffs. So the 2025-2026 season, we're going to get back into predicting that divisional round, basically. So just like last year, leading up to training camp, we
Big
are going to
news.
start a Commanders giveaway. So what you got to do, it is a jersey giveaway. What we need you to do, we need you to subscribe to the channel. That's number one. Hit subscribe, and then send us an email with your name, your address, and your jersey size to Dom and Pop Giveaway 1 at gmail.com. Once we hit 2,000 subs, we'll have a drawing. You guys will get to pick the winner. I know we had a winner last year. Got his Jaden Daniels jersey. I forget the
Jorge.
gentleman's name, but Jorge,
Jorge.
there you go. Good pull, Pop. Our boy Jorge won last year. Shout out to Jorge. And I'm sure he can vouch for you how awesome it was to have that Jaden Daniels jersey with what a special season that was. Maybe Dom and Pop's generosity set it into motion. I don't know. I'm not saying it, but the people are saying it. Who knows? But go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Send us that email, your address, jersey size to Dom and Pop Giveaway 1 at gmail.com. We'll have a pinned comment down below as well with the instructions. And once we hit 2,000 subscribers, we will have a drawing to pick that winner. Now, we would like to hit that before week one. That is our goal. Last year, we smashed it. So let's see if we can do that again this year. 2,000 subscribers by week one. We need about 800 of y'all, somewhere, give or take, to
Yeah,
join.
we're
And
at
it should be
1,200 and
easy.
change right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be easy given that 90% of our viewers are not subscribed. So all you got to do, hit that subscribe button, send off a quick email. It doesn't cost you nothing, and you're in the run for a free jersey. What are these jerseys going for nowadays, Pop? 130, 140 bucks?
Something like
I
that.
mean, yeah, it's free money in this economy. You need that. So, what do you say we get into talking to the ball, Pop? Did I miss
Dom and
anything?
Pop investing in the people.
Always, always.
Not quite a paying gig yet, but we're getting there.
Working on it.
That's it.
Let's get right into it, man. Let's talk some balls. So, training camp starts in less than 3 weeks. As of it'll start on July 27th. So as of today, we're filming this on the 6th. So you're looking at
Three
21
weeks
days.
from today.
3 weeks from day of filming. It'll be less than 3 weeks from the day you're hearing this. So where are we? We don't have a vibe check on the outline, but I want to take a quick vibe check here, Pop. Where are the vibes headed into
Yeah.
training camp? How you feeling?
When you got five, you got a chance.
That's all you need, right?
We don't have Jaden on the outline, so I had to bring up Jaden Daniels. Yeah. Although I do have a question for you, Jaden Daniels related, that I was going to sneak in there at some point when you cue me. Um, no, I think you got five, you got a chance. I think there's, you can always, we're going to go over the rosters. We're going to do a defensive side of the ball, offensive side of the ball position group each week leading up to training camp. And, I think um, overall, I like what they've done. You can always pick certain position groups that you think should be stronger. There are some question marks, as with any roster, there's some question marks. We're projecting positively about those question marks, but you got some rookies in there like Connerly and Amos. I mean, are they going to really be the starters we expect them to be, or are they going to struggle in year one? So it's just an example, right? So you know, got to get Terry signed. We'll get into that in a little bit here, but my vibes are good. How can they not be? How about you?
Right? Yeah, my vibes are pretty high as well. I'm feeling good. I'm excited. I'm just ready to get some football going, man. It's gonna be good. I can't wait to get some ball to watch. Stop talking about all these silly storylines that we're trying to talk about during the year, come up with new stuff. But I can't wait to actually get into some football so we can just talk ball, what happened on the field, what's going to happen next week, so on and so forth. Get back into that flow. Um, but speaking of storylines, off-season storylines, the biggest one for the Commanders has been Terry McLaurin. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN currently is reporting that Terry McLaurin is, quote, not happy with where things are with an extension. Um, his valuation is around 31.1, 30 million, depending on who you ask. Sport Track has it at 31.1. How are you feeling on the Terry thing? Is there a panic meter for you, Pop? Do you think it gets done before training camp? Where are you at?
I'm at, you know, when you pick that shirt out of your closet and it looks good on the hanger, but just doesn't fit quite right. You know, it's a
I
little
hate that feeling.
uncomfortable, maybe
Oh,
tight in the armpits kind of thing, but you went with it and you're out and you're having to deal with wearing that shirt. It's kind of where I'm at with Terry. It isn't a major panic, it isn't a problem, but it just feels uncomfortable. I
yeah,
guess is my point. I'm feeling uncomfortable with the situation until he gets signed. You got to hear all these trade rumors. Every other day, there's a new trade rumor. There's a new, I think the Buffalo Bills are one of the more recent ones I saw. Didn't even entertain clicking on it, but it's uncomfortable. But everyone you talk to, every one of the key, not talk to. I wish we were talking to them, but anyway, the key guys that cover the Commanders, like Kime, like JP, and that group, they keep saying, "Don't worry, it's going to get done. Terry's going to be there," and I agree with that. So it's pretty low. Maybe I'm up from a 0 to like a 1.5 at this point because I don't have any doubt he's going to be there week one. But I don't like the idea of him missing practice time, and it's trending where that's becoming more of a possibility, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they're using in their leverage is well, he's not going to come to training camp. You want Terry at training camp, don't you? He's not going to come to training camp. You want him getting practice reps with Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey and some of your young wide receivers, don't you? So pay us what we want, and we'll do that. So they're using that as leverage, of course. This is the part of it. Um, what I don't like about these things is sometimes you see these guys. You saw it with Brandon Ayuk, and you saw it with CeeDee Lamb. Now, granted, CeeDee's quarterback situation was tough, but they hold out right until the last second, right before Week 1. They finally get signed, and then, I mean, they're not. I know Ayuk got hurt, but Ayuk was not Ayuk last year. They're not quite in football shape. They're not quite ready to play, and I know that these guys do everything that they can do before the season starts on their own. If they are holding out, right, they do want to get that contract and prove that they're worth it, and they stay in shape the best they can. But there is no substitute for playing football, and you just can't play football if you're not at training camp. That's just how it works. Can't play NFL football without going to practice. So
I mean, we talked about everything they've done to, improve the offensive line, which is one of the position groups we're going to talk about today, and add weapons like Debo Samuel and do things to ensure that year two of Jaden Daniels is a success. Not having your number wide receiver in training camp, which I hope it doesn't get to that point, um, is not good. Is not conducive for what Jaden needs in year two and what the team needs. Right? How involved do you think you know Josh gets in this? Right, the owner. Right? I mean, how involved do you think that he maybe gets in this? Because he seems to be hitting all the right marks with the fan base. And this is something that's important to the fan base. If it comes down to a couple of $1,000,000 or something like that, do you think that he pulls Adam Peters and said, "Just get this done. Just let's get there." Or maybe Terry does the same thing with his agent. Says, "Look, let's just sign this thing. They're They're at 31 million. We want 33. Let's just get it done.
Yeah. I hope Josh Harris is not getting involved. I think I want to stay consistent on that. And I don't want him making football decisions. I want him making decisions on running the business, which he's doing a great job of. I don't need him making football decisions. He hired Adam Peters to do that. I certainly hope Terry goes to his agent and says, "Man, let's just sign this thing. I want to go play some ball." That's what I do hope happens. But we'll see. I think I'm still not too panicked about it, but I certainly as the days go by, I'm like, let's get this done, please. I want to stop hearing about it. So next up on our docket here, we got the Commanders are looking to release new alternate uniforms. July 9th, they'll be out. So depending on when you're watching this pod, if you're one of our loyal, speedy listeners, they won't be out yet. But if you're catching us maybe later in the week, they're already out. But you have anything to say about the new uniforms, Bob?
I threw this one in there just because it's in the news and there's limited news out at this time. I don't really care too much, honestly. It just doesn't, it's just not that important to me. I think it'll be cool, obviously, if they come up with something that's, more of a throwback. If you look at the article that I connected, there's a pretty good tease on the Commander's website for those of you that think that you're going to get the spear or some sort of throwback helmet. It doesn't look like that's the case at all. It involves the W in one way or another. Here and maybe tweaks to the black uniform might become. I think that's separate from this, but I think it's likely something from the Super Bowl era. There was one theory that was going around of maybe the burgundy top and the white pants that are very similar to the Joe Gibbs era uniform look. Um, maybe they add the yellow stripe to the helmet or something like that. So yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, they did make sure to make it very
Are
clear
you
that
on the
that
edge of your
W is
seat? You
visible.
like
I don't care.
clicking refresh every 5 minutes on what would that be?
It's not
Wednesday
a
morning?
it's a sport, not a fashion show. I really don't care.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Like I'm looking forward to throwback uniforms. I hope we get some cool old throwbacks. What I would love is the ones they did these in the early 2000s with the like it has like four or five stripes, the more yellow gold and the
Yeah,
burgundy, like
yeah,
the
that's the
real old
70s
school ones.
uniform. That's the
I would
70s
love
uniform.
those. I would love to see those come back in the Commander style. I think any throwback jersey with just Commanders where it used to say Redskins is going to be really cool. I'm fired up about that, and it's not going to say Redskins. It's not going to have a spear on it. I think the spear could be cool, and I like how they're kind of slowly trying to reclaim that spear a little bit and turn it into more of like a Commanders thing. But they're not going to do it this time, at least not on the helmet. So don't hold your breath. I hope you all have better things to do. Some of you clearly don't, but I hope you do. Let's move on. Getting into our position groups. This is
I
the
got
the
a
meat and
question for you
potatoes of
though.
the segment. Go ahead.
Before we go there, real quick, I'm gonna give you 60 seconds on the clock. Cam Newton talking sophomore slump for Jane Daniels, comparing him to RG3's rookie year. What do you
Well,
think about that? Did you see
yeah.
that?
I mean, Cam Newton is no stranger to performing like Deuce, except for 1 year in his career. So it
That's a
does
little
check
harsh.
out. It does check out. I got no interest in that. He's a hater. He has been so overly critical. Look. Cam Newton was a phenomenal football player for a
Yeah,
very short
he had
period of
more than
time.
better ones
It
than
was a phenomenal football player for a relatively short period of time, and I think I got all the respect in the world for him as a player at that time, despite what I just said. But I got no interest in what he has to say. He's kind of just been a kind of a goofy dude since he's
well,
been out of the league. So I
I
don't really
set you
have
up
that
a little
much.
bit. I think if you actually listen to the clip, he's not predicting that's going to happen. He's just stating the possibility that it could happen, which
He's been stating the possibility of negatives when it comes to Jaden for forever because he's too concerned about, in my opinion, I think Cam Newton is very concerned about moving down again on the list of dual threat quarterbacks. It already happened to him once with Lamar Jackson entering the fold. Now, now Jaden Daniels. And instead of saying, hey, I pushed the art of the dual threat quarterback forward with my play, and I'm so excited to see these young guys take on my legacy and continue that. Instead of that, he's kind of found a way to take shots at them along the way. So
I think he's got
that's his
some bitter. I think
prerogative.
he's got some bitterness about how his career ended. You know, so I think they're. I can't. I'm not going to do a psychological profile. I think again, when we talk about Jaden, it's always fun to talk about Jaden and try to squeeze topics in there. And I'll just say this real quick: all you can really judge in the offseason is the process, right? You judge the process of the players that Adam Peters picks. You judge the process of how Dan Quinn and everybody's operating. You judge the process of Josh Harris. If you judge the process of Jaden Daniels, he's just doing all the right things. He's saying all the right things. He's preparing the right way. He's much more than of the he's a dual threat quarterback who can operate just fine from the pocket. So can play at an elite level from the pocket and is a great decision maker. So all we can do is judge the process. Scoreboard is going to happen, and we'll know what year two looks like soon enough.
Yeah,
But
I
there's
don't care.
nothing in the process that would lead you to believe it's not going to be a great year two.
I really don't care what Cam Newton has to say. It's pretty piss poor, and it was on Jaden during the season. You can look up what he's had to say about him. It's pretty weak.
Yeah,
But go ahead if you want to hit your
you want to
horse
be
to
on
that
that side of the
wagon,
argument. Yeah,
so be it. It's easy for us to be on the right side of history because we're wearing burgundy and gold. But I guess the national media, it's hard to root for a kid who's doing things that very few, if any, guys in the league can do, and doing everything the right way, and is a class act, and is just a great ball player, and has turned around one of the most premier franchises in the NFL. I know it can be hard to root for that guy. I understand how difficult that is. Um, so I'm empathetic, I guess. But getting into our two position groups for today, we're talking big premier position groups today, man. We're talking offensive line and we're talking safety. This is a real ball knowers pod today. This is the good stuff. So I think this offense is going to go the way of this offensive line. I think what you've established with Jaden Daniels is a offense that has probably a floor of being a top half of the league offense, regardless of how the other positions around are performing. Jaden Daniels performs like Jaden Daniels. This team is going to be no worse than probably top 12 offensively. It's that kind of like Mahomes, Lamar, Allen effect where you just have an elite guy playing quarterback and you're going to get it done offensively because of that. Football is very complicated, but sometimes
you sound a little bit like Pop. If they're anything less than top five, that's a disappointment this year.
yes. And I think in order to get to that level, if this offensive line performs at the level that we expect them to, I think what's going to go between 12 to 5 is going to be that offensive line. Specifically run blocking, I think. But pass protecting as well is going to be super, super crucial, keeping Jane Daniels upright, keeping him comfortable, and opening up those lanes in the run game for Brian Robinson, for Krosky Merritt, for Austin Eckler, whoever's toting the ball. Chris Rodriguez might still be in the picture. I mean, good Lord, what's his name? McNichols is still in the picture. So could be anybody back there. Pop could be taking snaps by the middle of the season. Um, but whoever's at
We
running
need some
back,
big holes.
oh, that's some slow linebackers. But whoever's at running back is going to be supported by these guys, as well as, of course, the priority keeping Jaden Daniels upright, healthy, and comfortable in that pocket throughout the course of the year. So right now, the projected starters, obviously, as AP said after drafting Josh Connerly, LT is going to play LT. So we've got Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. That's locked in. Brandon Coleman looking like the favorite to be starting at left guard. He's been getting most of his reps inside. He was potentially a guard coming out of college. A lot of guys viewed him as such. So I think, again, that's just going to make all the sense in the world in terms of like keeping Brandon Coleman inside, just using his talent. Um, And you've got at center Tyler Biadasz. He's a stud, man. He's the quarterback of the offensive line. And then now this right side is where things start to get kind of saucy, start to get kind of interesting. Because is Josh Connerly ready to start at right tackle as a rookie? Obviously, there's some like talk about needing to develop him a little bit more before he can become a starter. I think they are pretty confident he's ready to plug in and play. Um, I mean, Jaden Daniels is the only first round pick Adam Peters has made. Obviously, they have a track record of starting these guys right away with him, but that's a whole different conversation, right? It's not like you drafted somebody in the middle. It's not like you drafted a corner at 25. You drafted your quarterback at number 2. He's going to start. Um, so what do you do with Josh Connerly on the right side? Right now, we're going to project he's going to be your starting right tackle, which would then move Andrew Wiley inside to right guard, which is obviously he'll just be filling in until Sam Cosmi's back and healthy. So it gets a little interesting on that right side. You've got some other notable guys. You've got Nick Allegretti, who was our starting left guard last year. I was pretty critical of him over the course of the year, but he is an option. I think he's a much better depth piece than he is your starter. You've got Nate Herbig, who they brought in, young guy, big body, still a little raw. Brought him in as a guard, and then you've got yeah, and then you've got Trent Scott, who can play tackle. He can play guard. He's kind of your like swing role player along the offensive line. More and more, you're seeing less of these guys, especially as you get further down the depth chart, be like position specialists on the offensive line. And the philosophy is more just get your best five out there. So I think without a doubt, right now, our best five are probably Tunsil, Coleman, Biadish, Connerly, and Wiley, with assuming Cosme's hurt, right? But we'll see. What do you think for that offensive line, Pop?
There's some question marks there, right? I mean, Brandon Coleman moving to guard is a question mark. I think he's in play at right tackle too if Connolly is not looking ready. Of course, Andrew Wiley was your starter at right tackle. Kind of a little bit of hit and miss in terms of performance there. I think the exciting thing is when Cosme comes back, you can be in that situation where you've got 6 starters, maybe even 7 if you consider the fact that Allegretti was a starter last year on a line that performed really well. I think, Herbig, if he's able to get back to what he was and get healthy, could be a starting caliber guard as well. So there's better depth across that line as well. But I think there's some question marks, right, in terms of we're projecting a starting 5 here. Is that how it's really going to shake out? It could. And I think that Dan Quinn's talked about competition. So if Connolly's not ready, I mean, I don't know. We've got the example last year. Was Brandon Coleman really ready? There was the article that I got this from talked a little bit about the rotation between that we had last year between what was it, Coleman and uh, Lucas. Um, do we have a similar situation at right tackle? With maybe a Coleman and Wiley or a Coleman, not Coleman. I mean a Connerly and Wiley or a Connerly and Coleman, where their rotation going on. So it'll be interesting, but I think competition is going to really be ultimately what plays this thing out to ensure these guys are ready. You know, um, and I think probably the biggest puzzle piece on this is Josh Connolly ready to step in and be a full time starter, right? And you would hope a first round draft pick that he would be.
Yep. Um, if Connerly is ready, I think things start to make a little bit more sense. If you do get into a scenario where Coleman needs to kick out and play on that right side, and Connerly's not ready, well, now you've got a hole at left guard that you've got to fill. Now you've got a Wiley or an Allegretti playing left guard, and then also Wiley or Allegretti playing right guard. So now the interior of that offensive line starts to look not so hot, in my opinion. So having Coleman in at that left guard position, this is why I like the Connerly pick, and why I was honestly higher on the trade for Tunsil, of course. But this is why I was so high on the moves that we made, getting Tunsil, because it improves 2 positions.
Yeah,
But now
no doubt.
if Coleman has to play right tackle, some of that starts to go away.
I
So
don't know. I
it
mean, we
gets
didn't
interesting.
expect them to draft, and we expected that before the draft. Sorry,
Yeah,
before the draft, we kind of expected that maybe Coleman might be going to right tackle. So I see your point. I mean, you did spend draft capital on Connerly. I don't think there's any indication that we've seen so far through OTAs, minicamp, whatever, that he's not going to be able to step in. Might
no,
be, might be similar to Coleman in that we see some growing pains there at times, and that's okay. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think overall, though, a much
yeah,
improved position group.
yeah.
And they did the offensive line last year. I think did better than we expected them to, given the personnel. But on top of that, I think we also experienced something that we haven't experienced in DC for a very long time, which is they actually coached for the personnel last year. And when I watch a lot of like tape and like replays of games and stuff like that I've been watching in the offseason, like I noticed like they were shifting protections a lot. They were moving the pocket a lot. They were doing a lot of things. They were chipping a ton. Um, they were doing a lot of things. I mean, sometimes on third down, Jane Daniels would have three guys running routes out there because uh you've got Ertz and what's his name, Brian Robinson or Austin Eckler probably on third down blocking. Um, so I think they did a lot to try and salvage that group last year, and it managed to be serviceable, good enough. I don't think the offensive line was ever like the reason we lost the game, other than maybe against Philly, who does that to the other 31 teams in the NFL too. Um, so
But
I think,
I think
go
the
ahead.
inability to run the ball and the inability to stop the run were the two biggest weaknesses of this team at times. Right, it wasn't always consistent, but at times that inability to stop the run and inability to run the ball were big weaknesses of this team. And you're right; they had to kind of compensate for that by different offensive schemes if we're focused on offensive line. So I think the real tell is going to be, can we get a running game going? And we're kind of running it back at running back, which we'll talk about a different week. But um, yeah, it's. I agree with you. I think that the success or failure or this team being able to take it to even that next level is going to offensive line is going to be a huge factor in that.
Definitely. And yeah, I agree. The inability to run the ball definitely hurt us down the stretch last year. But you're putting up 45 points in playoff games. You're getting enough done offensively to win the game, right?
True.
So I
And
think
you got guys
overall,
like Debo and Jaden, of course, in the run attack as well, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think overall just much improved. Do you have a grade you want to put on this offensive line, Pop?
I'm gonna go B plus.
Yeah, we're
I'm
gonna go
gonna
the
not
same.
quite go in the A yet because of the question marks. I got to see it before I'm going into the A range.
I think B plus without Cosby. I think comfortable A when if Cosby comes back healthy and performs how he usually plays. Comfortable A like 95,
Yeah.
94 and a half, 95. Comfortable. Um, I think you've got as good of a unit as any in the league if Cosby can come back and perform. But you're right, there are a lot of question marks with Coleman playing guard, Conley kicking out right. There is volatility potentially, but with the way this group has done things and
Got your
the
boy Michael Dieter as the backup center.
goodness gracious. I hope they find a better option there. Um, Getting into safety. Speaking of my boys, this is one of my favorite position groups on the team right now. Um, we've got projected starters, obviously, our two safeties right now are Will Harris and Quan Martin. And then our other notables, you've got Percy Butler, who's hanging around. Percy Butler has been a bigger part of the program than a lot of other Rivera picks, which is pretty wild to say, given he was just kind of like a fourth round special teams guy. Tyler Owens, undrafted guy they found last year, and Jeremy Reeves hanging around there. Now, there's been some talk about getting Jeremy Reeves involved more on the defensive side of the football. I don't, I don't know. He's been in the league a long time. He's played for the team for a long time. He's an excellent special teamer. I don't think I want to hedge too much on him all of a sudden turning into the second coming of Ed Reed because Joe Witt Jr. finds the right packages for him.
But that's the problem with this group is depth. I mean, I think this is probably one of the easiest starting group predictions to make because if they're healthy, it's going to be Harris and Martin. But then your depth, I guess Percy's a guy you're going to need to depend on in some nickel packages, and but I think that's the challenge with this position group.
See, we talk about it with the offensive line that there's some volatility and there's some guys that you expect should be able to adapt or do well. It's harder to project that with this group. I think you're gonna need Quan Martin to take that next step into like Pro Bowl level play, which I think he can, and I think he will. But you're gonna need that. You're gonna need him at least to improve on what he gave you last year, and I think what he gave you last year was still pretty darn good. But we're just not good enough at that safety group to maintain. And I think, frankly, this is a hot take. As much as I like the guy, and as much as I came on here and gave him sauce words and helmet stickers, getting out of the moment, I think Jeremy Chin was one of the more overrated commanders last year. And I think it's that's dictated by the fact that they let him walk, and for as little money as he ended up signing for in Vegas, and how unimportant you saw, they made a point of making sure Wagner came back. They made a point of making sure Ertz came back. Chan's a younger guy earlier on in his career. If he was really performing at that level that the fan base acts like he was performing at, they would have made a point of bringing him back. Um, and I don't see, and again, it's not like he was made the highest paid safety in the league and they just didn't have the money. They had the cap space. He got paid a reasonable salary. It's very clear the decision was made to move on from him because of the way he plays football. And he's a good player in certain aspects. He's a decent tackler. He gets downhill fast. He can lay a big hit. And he's a classic, like, casual football watcher favorite player because you see him make a couple big hits throughout the course of the game. But then all of a sudden, Shoemaker's wide open over the top on third down. And where's Jeremy Chin? And Jeremy Chin's standing like this in the middle of the field. And it happened week after week after week. I did not trust him in coverage.
Will Harris, who we brought in, and it was a former teammate of Marshawn Lattimer's, the better cover guy. Probably not quite as physical, although watch his highlight film. There's a lot of physicality with Will Harris as well, but probably definitely should give us an upgrade from a coverage perspective. Which I think, if I was going to choose between the two, I'd really, I think what's the secondary all about? It's covering, right? So, and I think he can be plenty physical. I think Quan Martin has shown he can be physical at times too. Percy Butler as well. So, I think it's like I said, where I get concerned is depth with this group. So I'd probably go C+ on the safety position.
Man, we're in lockstep. That's exactly what I was going to say for the safeties. Yeah, C plus. Hopefully, you can see a little
There's
more out of
potential
Tyler
there.
Owens. Yeah, there's potential
There's
there for
Tyler
sure.
Owens. I just don't have a vibe on him at all. I just don't really know. I know he flashed at moments. I know he's a good special teamer, um, but I can't really comment one way or another what I think we're going to get out of him. He's somebody I gotta pay a little more attention to.
Yeah, this is an
Yeah,
undrafted guy. Didn't play a ton of meaningful snaps on the defensive side of the ball last year, so it's hard to figure out what they want out of him. But yeah, I'm hoping you're gonna need a guy that's not. You're gonna need Will Harris to be as advertised, and then you're gonna need a guy that's not Will Harris or Quan Martin to step up with this
yeah,
group. So yeah, I'd say C. I'd say pretty. You know, now this didn't really fly in our household, but they will tell you C is an average grade. So I think it's about average for me on this safety group, even though you have a guy like Quan, who I think is a significantly above average player. It's offset by the depth.
yeah. I think if Will Harris and Quan Martin are a solid to better than average starting group potentially, but it's not at least on paper going into the season. It doesn't look like. an area of strength necessarily.
Yeah. I don't think this group's gonna hurt you. I think
You
this
hope
group will. I don't think this group's gonna hurt you. I think I can confidently say that. Past there, I don't know that they're gonna super help you either. But I don't think this group's gonna hurt
Well,
you a
and
ton.
that's
So
and that's the problem because I think a lot of times that safety position is where that other like you do get star players on your defense. You tend to get star players in your defense in that role. Hamilton, comes to mind with the Ravens, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I do like Will Harris. I do get a good vibe off Will Harris. So
want to make some picks, pot?
let's make
No
some
pun,
picks.
no pun intended. Talking safeties, getting into picks. Let's make some picks here. So, divisional playoff round is what we're gonna do now. You guys have been following our series. Each week we pick a different round of the playoffs. Or for I think the first week we just projected who was going to make the playoffs, and then we got week by week and kind of picked as we went. Obviously, we did miss a week with our friend Lou Holder on a couple weeks ago. So as you're going back and checking those clips, go check that pod out. Shout out to Lou; he had a blast having him on. But getting into it here, divisional round this week. So for me, currently my matchups. You want me to go first, Pop? I'm top on the outline. I'm going to go first here. For my matchups right now, in the AFC, we have the number 5 seed Broncos versus the number 1 seed Bills, and then the number 3 Ravens versus the number 2 Chiefs. And I think this sets up for exactly what we've all been waiting for, what we see every year. I think we get Bills Chiefs AFC Championship game, but at Buffalo this time. Buffalo gets to do it at home, which is much to what Pop has said about how he feels like the Ravens need the Super Bowl to go through Baltimore. I think it's going to be the same thing for Buffalo. I think if they want to make the Super Bowl, it's got to go through Buffalo. So we're going to see the Bills and the Chiefs play at the Bills Stadium here. Should be a heck of a game. Got to set up for that. Every season, I'm rooting to see that matchup. I don't care. I don't
Yeah,
care if it makes me a casual or whatever, but I'd love to
in
see it.
Buffalo, that's going to
Yeah,
be that's going to be like maybe that's enough to get them over the hump. You have to wait till next week to see if
we'll find out.
that's enough. So for AFC, for me, I have Ravens as my number 1 seed. So I have Bengals at Ravens, and then Bills at Chiefs. Bills number 3, Chiefs number 2. I think this Bengals Ravens game could set up to be a classic. I don't
Yeah,
think our insider's going to sleep all week. Um, he's got a new baby boy, so he's used to being sleep deprived. But I think this will be because of his nerves. Um, I, I think it's going to be a classic. I think it's going to be one of those back and forth battles. I think there's going to be a ton of points put up, but I will give the Ravens the edge in this one. I will say they'll
got
squeak it
to.
out. They'll squeak out a win, make that AFC Championship, get a home AFC Championship game, which could be huge for them. I'm still thinking a Beltway Super Bowl is a real possibility this year. We'll have to wait and see if that's where I go with my picks. And I'm going to take the Bills to upset the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I'm going to say it's going to be a Bills Ravens AFC Championship game. So a little different from you. We've only got one team in common with the Bills. So I'm going to say Bills Ravens.
I like it.
Bills at Ravens in the AFC Championship.
I think that's a matchup the
I
Ravens
usually
will.
like to ride with my Chiefs. Just a tingle that I'm feeling, here on July 6th. It's early, but
Fair enough. I think that's a matchup that the Ravens will feel pretty good about. Getting the Bills, I think they'll kind of be a little bit relieved to, Ravens fans won't. I don't know that they'll tell you explicitly that they don't like. Our Ravens insider certainly says he hates having to play the Chiefs.
yeah.
But I think if you gave the Ravens fan base some truth serum, they would tell you that they'd much rather see the Bills feel a lot more confident against that team. I mean, they laid it down against them last year. So I think you'd be feeling pretty good if you're the Ravens and you get the Bills at home for the AFC Championship game.
I mean, you
Um,
got the Chiefs with an easy win. You didn't even sweat that one picking the Chiefs to beat the Ravens.
I just feel like they got their number. And I'm not gonna not predict the Chiefs to make the AFC Championship game. I'm just not, and that's the way the bracket shook out this year. And I'm just not, especially when they get to play at home. There's just no,
Going chalk. You're going
yeah,
chalk.
yeah. I'm just gonna be a year late on that one. And I think the Chiefs are in this weird situation where like they remind me of when Golden State won another championship and what was it like 2022, something like that. This Chiefs team kind of reminds me of that. Is like they
Yeah.
kind of got whooped in the Super Bowl last year. Everybody's talking about, oh, they're not what they were. Everybody's looking for their new AFC teams, Ravens, Bills. If you're me, you're talking about the Broncos. But you don't you're counting out this Kansas City team that does not need to do much more to get right back to where they were.
Well,
I mean, they were.
people keep forgetting about their defense too,
I feel like
which is a championship level defense.
I feel like this is crazy to say. I feel like people are forgetting about Patrick Mahomes. I
Yeah.
really feel like people are forgetting
But
who
it's
Patrick
all the
Mahomes.
conversation is about Pat had an off year,
Fine, yeah,
Yeah. Um,
but
but yeah, Travis is getting older. They don't really have weapons that have established themselves on offense. I mean, it seems like questions on offensive line seems to be the conversation around the Chiefs. But that defense, and I think they hear the whispers, right? And betting against Pat, and is never a great idea. And don't forget Andy Reid,
yeah,
one of the best
yeah,
coaches in history. So
yeah. You just can't go. You can't go wrong with it. I was watching kind of watching a video of kind of breaking down how that Chiefs offense works. And yeah, it's almost impossible to defend the way that scheme is kind of set up. So it's very, very interesting. Getting into the NFC side of things here, this is probably the more our team side here. We got the Lions, number 3 seed versus the number 1 Rams for me, and then the Eagles, number 5 seed versus the number 2 Commanders. Commanders will be at home
home game.
here. I think the Commanders get their revenge and they beat the Eagles finally. Well, I won't say finally because it'll happen in the regular season too. But I think the Commanders will beat the Eagles in the playoffs next year if they do run into each other. Um, and Lions versus Rams, this one is tough. And the Lions and the Rams have had some sneakily good games over the
Yeah.
last couple of years. This is a fun matchup. I think I'm gonna take the Lions in this one, and then I think you get a rematch of the divisional round next year,
Home game for the
last year
Commanders.
in the NFC Championship. And yeah, the
Oh,
Commanders are hosting a home game, so Lions will come to the Commanders for the NFC Championship.
yeah. So we're having fun with this thing, right? I mean, I've definitely said that I still think that the Eagles are a team to beat, but gotta have a little fun here, right? We gotta have a
Have
little
to.
fun. So I got I got the number 5 seed Commanders going to the number 1 seed Eagles, right? Even though I wrote it wrong on the outline just to trip myself up. I'm gonna say the Commanders get this done on the road in Philly. How sweet would that be, right? Even
Yeah.
sweeter. I'm gonna say they get it done. I'm gonna say they understand the mistakes that cost them the last time around. I think that the Eagles may become a little overconfident being in a similar situation as they were the last time, except in the division round. They get that bye week. Sometimes that bye week hurts teams, right? They kills the momentum a little bit. Probably gonna maybe resting guys even towards the end of the season. I say the Commanders get it done again. Just having some fun. And I'm with you. I got the Lions upsetting the Rams in LA. So I've got the Commanders going to Detroit for the NFC Championship game.
So pretty similar here. We've got the Lions, the Commanders. I've got the Bills and the Chiefs, and you've got the Bills and the Ravens.
Yeah.
For our final four. So pretty similar groups. I think personally, when you're talking about these four teams, I mean, I think Commanders, Lions, Rams, Eagles. I think it's an undisputed going into next year, probably the best four teams in the NFC, and I think you can put them in pretty much whatever order you want.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I would agree
you
with
know,
that.
Yeah, you can put them in whatever order you want, and I don't think I'll argue with you too much as long as you don't have the Eagles like too far
The
down.
Rams are an
Maybe
interesting one. I'm still not so sure. I know we're
I like
both
that team.
picked them really high, but I'm still not as sure about the Rams. I got to see it. So
I like that team. If Stafford can stay healthy, this is the only thing I'm not sure about is Stafford staying healthy for another year. Because it's always kind of a question mark. But I like that team a lot. That defense is filthy. Um, and I think they probably would have made the NFC Championship game last year if it was like a best of three series, but that's a different
yeah,
conversation. Anyways, if it didn't start snowing. But hey, it was the run of God for the Eagles, the team that did not have a single fluke all year. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's wrap this thing up, Pop. It's been fun. What do you say we call this a podcast, man? We
yeah,
yapped today. Boys got down to it.
always.
All right. Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you for another great week, everybody, and hail to the Commanders.
Yeah.